Karma hits back at blackmailer boyfriend. I was in a quandary. It was a serious, life-changing situation that could have ended badly at any rate. I got drunk on a work trip and fell in love with a predator. He was handsome and witty and knew just what to say and when to say it. The next day, I woke up in his bed. I was mortified. But this sweet-talking devil talked me down, telling me it was just a burst of instant attraction. Neither of us wanted to do it, and we would never talk about it again. I spent the next 3 nights with him. He was an experienced lover, far superior to my husband, mostly because my husband and I were each other's first. My husband and I had tried, read books and watched movies, but it still ended up being just plain run-of-the-mill sex, and that was enough. Until this trip. Dylan was bigger, more demanding, talking rather than asking, and it could have gone on forever. I got at least 3 sessions of sex every time, whereas with my husband I was lucky if I got even 1. I came home frightened and ashamed, sure my husband would figure it all out with barely a glance at me. But he didn't, assuring me of his love and telling me how much he missed me. That night we made love, and I caught myself wanting to scream at him to do whatever he wanted to me. I never came close. After waiting until he started snoring softly, I went to the bathroom to get excited about the memories of Dylan. 4 months passed, and my romance faded into oblivion. When I got back to my place, I had to attend another seminar. I almost refused, but I knew that if I refused, I would lose any hope of promotion, so I pulled myself together and decided that if I met Dylan, it would be a purely physical relationship. I checked in at 6. By 8:30, Dylan had driven me to hysterics. He just walked in, half ripped off my clothes, and had sex with me. The conference turned into a 3-day-plus morning sex fest. Again, Robbie was happy to have me home, but I was so bored I almost fell asleep during sex. 4 months later, the same scenario repeated itself. I was seriously considering leaving Robbie when Dylan blurted out that he was married. I got a promotion and didn't have to go to the next convention, although I warned the woman who took my place to be careful with Dylan. 6 months passed, and I felt I was in a good place. I was awakened by a wake-up call when one of the women Robbie was working with started hitting on him. It upset him so much that he told me about it, and I freaked out. How dare she? That sneaky fool. It never came to a fight because she got fired, but it scared me. If he slept with her, I'd be a scorched earth. Then it occurred to me that I had a closet full of skeletons myself, and I mentally wiped the sweat from my forehead. It made me value my marriage even more, and I made a conscious effort to make Robbie happy. I introduced him to a few techniques I'd learned from Dylan, telling him I'd read about them and found them interesting. They were, although they never reached the intensity I experienced with my lover. When Robbie returned home, he found candlelight dinner on the table and me wearing sexy lingerie. He wondered if he'd missed an event, but I allayed his fears with kisses. "What's going on?" Suddenly, I felt awkward. I want to talk about something important. I've never brought it up before because I've had to go on business trips, but with my promotion, it's only going to be once, maybe twice a year. I want to. He smirked. He almost always knew what I was thinking, except for one glaring question. "Yeah. Throw away your pills." The dinner I'd been so worried about had gone cold, but it was reheated nicely. We sat in our robes, realizing that getting dressed would be silly. I knew I was glowing. He seemed happy too, and we made love like obsessives for a month. I had never felt so loved. 4 months passed, and I still wasn't pregnant. The doctor advised us not to worry because sometimes it takes longer than expected for the medication to leave the body. My manager called me. "You know about Julie? She was hit by a guy who ran a red light, and she has a broken arm and leg. I know you were happy you didn't have to travel, but I need you to take the initiative. You are familiar with what is required. Julie should be recovered by the next trip." I couldn't say no, so I went home and told Rob about my trip. He was disappointed but understood, and I did my best to keep him satisfied. After the last time, he relaxed, smiling. "That's it? I'm pretty sure you're pregnant now. Mark it on your calendar. We put a big red X on the calendar in his workshop before he drove me to the airport. I arrived, got settled, and headed to my afternoon classes. It was no surprise when I saw Dylan. His smirk when he saw me irritated me to no end. He tried to get close a few times, but I tried to keep my distance. Eventually, he approached me at dinner. "It's good to see you. Maybe later we can spend some time together." My answer shocked him. "I don't think so, Dylan. You're a wonderful lover, and you've turned my world upside down, but that's in the past. Let's just keep our relationship as a fond memory. My husband and I want to have a baby, so there's no way I'm having an affair with you. I can't risk it." He seemed annoyed. "We'll be careful. We'll use contraception, and I know a pharmacist who can give you the morning after pill. It's not going to happen. I may already be pregnant, so there's no way I'm taking that pill. And frankly, the thought of sleeping with you makes me nauseous. You're still in shape, you look good, and you have great looks, so you shouldn't have a problem finding a bed partner." He looked shocked at the word nauseous. He must have pondered it because he talked me into sitting with him. He held out his phone to me and I almost fainted. It was a picture of me having sex with him. "You took pictures? You asshole." Dylan smirked. "Keep your voice down. I take pictures of all the women I have sex with. Do you want to see Julie when I was with her? No? Then let's get right to it. If you don't want this and the rest of my pictures of us together published, you'll be in my room tomorrow night. I'd do it tonight, but I already have someone from the Cleveland office." He stepped away from me, lowering his eyes. "Tomorrow," I said. I sat there in shock. Then my tears flowed. The waitress saw me crying and took me to a small room that wasn't in use. She asked if I was okay, and once I started, I couldn't stop and laid out the whole sordid story to her. She frowned, then smiled. "Wait here. I need you to talk to someone. It will only take a minute, and it might solve your problem." She returned a few minutes later, accompanied by a man and a woman. They were not shy in their expressions. The woman in a firm voice ordered me to tell them everything. I was ashamed to admit it, but I was too scared not to. The woman was unfazed. She sighed, then introduced herself. "I'm Captain Rogers Dana, SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, and this is Sergeant Matthews. What we heard is a form of blackmail, more specifically called sexual coercion. It's a Class F felony in this state. A conviction can result in heavy fines and 10 to 41 months in prison. If we go down this path, information will be disclosed." "That's impossible. I'll lose my husband for sure." Matthews spoke up. "It could go the other way. Guys who do that rarely think about the consequences. When faced with criminal charges, they usually give up. We can work on that." "You're welcome." Captain Rogers sat there thinking. I felt like she was judging me, but I could live with that if it solved my problem. "All right, then. We'll set up an ambush. It won't be an official act of our department, and I'll do it as a favor for my sister. However, if you find yourself in a formal situation, you'll have to press charges or we won't be able to help you." They left, and I looked at the waitress. She smiled. "Honey, I was in the same situation a while ago. Dana helped me, but this guy spitefully sent the pictures to my husband and asked for nothing in return. My husband and I were separated for 9 months. I just got back, and I try not to get into situations that could jeopardize my marriage. I'm on a very short leash, but it's a price I'm willing to pay." The next day, Dylan was sitting there smiling. I tried to avoid him as much as possible. He insisted that I have dinner with him. I made a conscious effort to look as attractive as possible, to lift him up, showing off the small hollow between my breasts and exposing my thighs as I sat down. He smirked. "I'm glad you're making the effort. It's going to be just like old times." "No, it won't be. It's not consensual. You're forcing me to have sex with you." "Force is such a strong word. I prefer to say it's a forced encounter, but it will be over soon." "Like I believe that. Are you telling me you won't try the same thing if we're ever in close proximity again? His smirk made me nervous. Maybe, but you know you like it. I remember how unbridled you are. It won't take you long to feel it again. I've begun to act. Look me in the eye and tell me you know what you're doing is wrong. Admit that it's a compulsion. Dylan laughed. That's exactly what it is. That will give me even more pleasure. He looked at me as I laughed, wondering what I was thinking. His eyes widened as two agents joined us. Dylan Thomas Renner, you are under investigation for attempted coercion and intent to commit use. Please follow us quietly. If you come with us voluntarily, we will waive the handcuffs. If you run away, we will use a stun gun and take you out in handcuffs in front of your coworkers. You have no evidence. My lawyer. He'll run as fast as he hears the tape. Dylan looked at me fiercely. You little traitor, you taped it? That would never hold up in court. Captain Dana laughed. It will, dumbass. Besides the fact that we're involved in a criminal investigation, this state has unilateral consent, which means that as long as one of you knows, it's legal. Now I advise you to shut up. As for the trial, if you are found guilty, you automatically face 1 to 3 years in prison, plus whatever fines the judge orders. He looked like he was about to pass out when he was taken to an empty room and left to simmer under the watchful eye of Sergeant Matthews for about 20 minutes. Interrogation. Rogers entered, leading me in. Listen carefully. Mrs. Marshall has agreed to drop the charges under certain conditions. Are you ready to listen? He couldn't nod fast enough. All right. Sighs. She'll drop the charges if you delete all of her photos from your phone, home computer, cloud storage, or any other device. You will delete them immediately in our presence. Understood? His look spoke for itself, but he agreed. Matthews opened the laptop, plugged it in, pushed it aside, and stood behind him. They were almost finished when Matthews grabbed his arm. Get back here! Renner protested, but Matthews was persistent. There were still pictures of 3 other women, and he had to remove them all. 40 minutes later, it was done. Rogers stood up. We'll keep the information about your attempted coercion of Mrs. Marshall in our records, just in case something happens. As much as it pains me, you can leave. Mr. Renner, I suggest you review your lifestyle and make changes. One day you may find yourself with an abusive husband or professional troubles. I see you have a wedding ring, and experience shows that shards can fly in all directions when something explodes and becomes public. The conference ends in 48 hours, and I advise you to be on your best behavior. I stood behind her, smirking as she explained something, and the looks he threw at me were murderous. I returned home, trying to forget this horrible event. My husband was surprised at the way I had lashed out at him that night. It was my way of reaffirming my fidelity to our marriage. Despite what I had done in the past, I truly loved him. He must have been right about the date of conception because 8.5 months later I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. 2 years later, a baby girl was born and added to our family. Many years later, I had to attend another conference as vice president to receive an award. We decided to see the city, for which we went as a family. The conference was on Thursday and Friday, and we booked Monday and Tuesday as mini vacations. Gail was 12, and her body was slowly turning into a woman's. Mick was almost 14, and he was already taller than both of his parents. He went by my father. We had our meetings, and I enjoyed socializing with people I hadn't seen in years. Then I turned around and saw him. Dylan. The years had not spared him. He was bald and 30 to 40 pounds overweight. I happened to notice that he wasn't wearing a wedding ring and thought his wife had probably left him years ago. Dylan. Cheater. I prefer Amy. Should I call you an asshole? I see you're not wearing a ring. Did she catch you cheating? When he answered, there was pain in his words. No, I caught her. I thought it was karmic revenge for all the wives he had slept with, but kept a neutral expression on my face. I'm really sorry to hear that. Thanks to us, I almost lost my husband. Will there be any problems? He blushed, but his voice sounded steady. Elaine, you stay in your lane, and I'll stay in mine. I nodded. Good luck, Dylan. I turned and walked away, smiling as I approached my husband. He saw me talking to Dylan and smiled. Who's this young guy? I met him at my very first seminar. He's also 3 years younger than us. When we first met, he had thick hair and was at least 30 pounds lighter. I don't think life has treated him favorably. Rob gave him a more critical look before smiling again. If life treated him badly, then you've been treated like a VIP. You don't look any older than the day we met. Maybe he never had a good woman to begin with. I was lucky. My eyes filled with unshed tears as I hugged him tightly. I hated my affair now more than ever, wondering how I could have risked the love of a good man for a roll in the hay. Lucky us. Speaking of luck, I hope the babysitter tired the kids out today. The rest of the evening he smiled like an idiot, a very welcome, loving idiot. In the elevator I held his hand, thanking God for his grace and reaffirming my devotion to my family. 10 years later. I sat next to my husband and watched my son marry the love of his life. She had a career that eventually included traveling, and soon she and I would have a long conversation. I reflected. The memories were not pleasant. Our company had an electronic bulletin board where you could congratulate employees on their birthdays, weddings, and personal accomplishments. All the branches were represented on it, and I saw a message that Dylan had passed away at the age of 46. There were no details, so I did some digging and found out that he was hit by a car as he was running across the street to escape his mistress's husband. The car was traveling 50 miles an hour and crushed him like a bug on the windshield. I felt sad that he had wasted his life living that way. I was thankfully distracted by the words, "You may kiss the bride." Dylan disappeared from my memories, hopefully never to return. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.